1.2 Democratic Principles in Global Governance. So, now what is meant by democratic principles? So, before knowing about democratic principles, here democracy means people's rule, or in other words, the system in which the people have the authority to decide legislation or the working of the country. So, the principles that support democracy are called democratic principles. Voting right, freedom of speech and expression, right to life and liberty are some of the examples of the democratic principles. Okay, so this topic is in news because recently Global Summit for Democracy was hosted virtually by the US. Okay, so this was the first initiative towards the global democratic renewal, and also it launched 424.4 million US dollars to support democracy from local to the global levels. So, even our Prime Minister advocated that democratic principles should be encouraged to guide the global governance. So, one important point from this summit is to initiate the global democracy from local to the global levels. So it focused mainly on the three pillars. You can look into this diagram over here. So the three pillars, first is strengthening democracy and countering authoritarianism. Here authoritarianism means belief that people must obey completely and not to be allowed freedom to act as they wish. Okay, authoritarianism means people should obey only some particular laws. Okay, they should not have their freedom of their wish. So that is meant by authoritarianism. So one of the pillar of this democracy is strengthening. One of the pillar of this democratic principles is strengthening democracy and countering this authoritarianism. Next is promoting respect for human rights, and third pillar is fighting corruption. So in the summit, our Prime Minister has spoke about the global governance. So we will now learn about the global governance as well as the global risks. So the global governance here actually means to govern globally by including policies, procedures, etc. at global level. Okay, global governance means to govern globally. So now imagine guys, you are the Prime Minister of India, and to implement this global governance, what you will do and in which areas can the global governance be applied? See, the mutual connection between India and other countries is trade, right? Friendly relations and policies that encourage trade and friendly relations, procedures and initiatives like this. So many are there. Okay, so we will implement democratic global governance by framing the policies. We will initiate many institutions for global governance, and many programs will be initiated in support of that. So, and other thing is implementing democratic principles globally means making friendly relations with other countries and giving equal rights to every country. Overall, it will be like imposing democracy globally. What is democracy? Democracy means giving equal voting rights to every citizen, right? So implementing democratic principles globally means giving equal rights to every country. Is it clear guys? So giving equal rights to every country, overall it will be like imposing democracy globally. So look at this in this diagram the major global risks. So, in economic risks, unemployment, asset bubble, and fiscal crisis. Now, what is this asset bubble? Asset bubble means sudden rise of prices and financial crisis, threats of illicit trade and critical infrastructure. All these are the economic risks. And now, coming to the environmental risks, biodiversity loss. Here, it means like exploiting biodiversity and human made environmental disaster, extreme weather and climate failure. All these are under environmental risks. And coming to the geopolitical risks, terrorism and interstate conflict, state collapse, national and global governance failure, societal risks like water and food crisis, infectious diseases, failure of urban planning and infectious diseases. See, all these, even COVID comes under this societal risks. And next is technological risks, cyber attacks and data theft, adverse technological advances, information infrastructure breakdown. All these, that is economic, environmental, geopolitical, societal, and technological risks, come under global risks. So, now coming to this principles of democracy and its benefits in global governance. See, the first is the Global State of Democracy Report 2021 has identified 5 core principles that can promote democracy. Okay, and those 5 principles are representative government. Okay, so representative government can be achieved in the form of clean elections, inclusive suffrage, free political parties, elected government. And the next is participatory engagement. It involves civil society participation, electoral participation, direct democracy, local democracy, and impartial administration. It comes under predictable enforcement, absence of corruption, checks on government, effective parliament, judicial independence, media integrity. All these come under the checks of governance. And next, fundamental rights is access to justice, civil liberties, social rights, and equalities. So, all these are the 5 core principles that can contribute the global democracy. So, the other benefits of the global democracy are: first, global development goals can be achieved by supporting more to the poorer sections of the world and encouraging them. Okay, global development goals can be achieved by supporting the most poorer sections so that equality is maintained. Next is fundamental freedom of all the countries can be protected, and all the countries work equally to tackle the environmental challenges, and all the countries also take equal responsibilities to address the global issue and also by solving those issues equally. So here next is establishing an inclusive, accountable, and responsible sovereign. Here, sovereign means decision making power will vest on all countries. Okay, so by it can establish inclusive, accountable, and responsible sovereign across the nations through control over the abuse of power. So it can counter authoritarianism. So next are the challenges faced by the democracy. First, rising authoritarianism. Authoritarianism means the belief that people must obey completely what they say. So that is authoritarianism. So by establishing the democratic principles, this can be countered. But still, it can there will be a challenge of authoritarianism, because As per the Global State of Democracy Report 2021, authoritarianism is increasing. The countries that follow authoritarianism are more than the countries that follow the democratic rights. So, under this, more countries are attracted to this authoritarianism rather than following the democratic direction. And the next is even the Freedom of House report here. The Freedom of House report stated that the countries are taking the backward step for global freedom. So both this Global State of Democracy report and Freedom House report both stated that there is a rising authoritarianism. And the next is there might be questions on electoral integrity. Here, electoral integrity means conducting elections in international standards and global norms. And the next is corruption. Corruption and this disinformation can be another challenge in achieving the global democracy. So, the way forward is we can achieve global democracy by intergovernmental cooperation, by strengthening democratic values and institutions, by ensuring free and fair elections, by supporting free and independent media, by fighting corruption, by making advancement in democracy, by addressing the loopholes of democracy or the weak areas of democracy, and by supporting regional efforts to make global democracy, by bringing reforms to global institutions. So, all these are the way forward, and all these are the areas which can be strengthened to achieve global governance on democratic principles.